Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating document, the eThekwini Municipality 2023/24 Demographic and Situational Analysis. Now, eThekwini is this rapidly expanding metropolis, but right now, it's standing at a really profound, high-stakes demographic crossroads. The numbers we're going to unpack today aren't just dry statistics. They are the foundational data layer that completely dictates how the city is planned, both spatially and economically. It's essentially a ticking clock, and the city's entire future depends on how it handles the trends we're about to look at.
So to really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of what we're dealing with, let's start with the baseline, 4,080,930. That is the estimated population of the municipality as of 2023. And eThekwini's has seen this massive, steady growth over the last 2 decades, climbing up from just over 3 million back in 2001. This number really sets the stage for the massive reality of the city today. I mean, we're looking at a sprawling, deeply complex urban center that has to figure out how to provide basic services, housing, and infrastructure for over 4 million human beings.
But like I said, the clock is ticking, and that population number, it's definitely not sitting still. By the time we hit 2050, projections show this population is going to explode to nearly 5 million, specifically 4,906,622 residents. So what's actually driving this? Well, it's this potent mix of natural increase, meaning births, and some seriously heavy in-migration. People are moving here in absolute droves. About 50% of those migrants are coming from other parts of KwaZulu-Natal, but you've also got a ton of people coming in from neighboring provinces like the Eastern Cape. It is relentless, explosive growth.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the golden opportunity. You see, when a city grows this fast, it actually creates this totally unique window in time, a structural advantage that can completely transform its economy. To get why, we need to talk about the demographic dividend. Basically, this is the accelerated economic growth potential that happens when your working-age population, so people between 15 and 64, outnumbers your dependent population, like kids and the elderly. And the 2023 population pyramid for eThekwini shows exactly this. They have this massive working age group. If you can actually put those people to work, the city's economic output could literally skyrocket.
Just look at the sheer scale of this youth bulge. It's phenomenal. A staggering 59.74% of eThekwini's residents are below the age of 35. That is practically 60% of the entire city. We're looking at a fundamentally young population profile. This right here, this is the engine of that demographic dividend. It's this massive, untapped pool of energy, innovation, and potential labor just waiting to be activated.
Let's humanize this data for a second so we can really picture it. Currently, the population dependency ratio in the municipality sits at 53 to 100. In plain English, that means for every 100 working-age folks, there are 53 children or elderly persons relying on them. On paper, the math here is fantastic. The dependence rests securely on the broad shoulders of a much larger working-age base. But, as we're about to see, having a massive working-age population really only works out if those people are, well, actually working.
And that brings us to the barrier, surging unemployment. The source data issues a pretty severe warning here. This incredible youth dividend we just talked about, it's actively at risk. Why? Because job growth simply hasn't kept pace with this booming labor force. If that massive working age group can't actually find jobs, the dividend flips and turns into a deficit. The very people who should be driving the economic boom end up becoming economically vulnerable instead.
Which leads us to Section 2, shifting ground, the urban-rural squeeze.
So where exactly is this booming population settling down? Right now, the central and north regions are holding the bulk of the population, around 34% and 33% respectively. But the overall distribution across the municipality is incredibly uneven. Take the Outer West region, for instance. It's the largest region by total land area, but it only holds about 11% of the actual population. You've got these massive expanses of land with hardly anyone there, while other areas are just bursting at the seams. It's a spatial mismatch that creates an absolute nightmare for urban planners trying to roll out infrastructure efficiently.
Now, I want to bust a really common myth right here. When you think of a huge metropolis of over 4 million people, you're probably picturing wall-to-wall skyscrapers, dense urban grids, the whole shebang. But the reality? Roughly 68% of the municipal area in eThekwini is legally considered rural, over 2/3 of the land. But as the data clearly shows, these rural areas aren't just sitting quiet and undeveloped. They are undergoing some really rapid, aggressive changes.
And this rapid change introduces us to the really messy reality of peri-urban spaces. Migration into eThekwini's rural areas is actively spiking because honestly, it's just much easier to get access to land out there. As a result, these formerly quiet, low-density rural zones are rapidly transforming into high-density peri-urban settlements. And the fallout from that is immense. Incredible pressure is suddenly being put on basic infrastructure, things like water pipes and roads, that was only ever designed for low-density rural use. The infrastructure is literally buckling under the weight of this hyper-localized migration.
Okay, let's slow things down a bit for Section 3, the reality check, vulnerability in numbers. To really grasp why eThekwini's potential is at such a huge risk of being squandered, we have to look closely at its specific socioeconomic vulnerabilities. Let me walk you through these realities. Look at education. Only 5% of the population has a tertiary level education, and the report explicitly calls out that this is lower than competing cities like Johannesburg and Cape Town. Astonishingly, 7% have absolutely no formal schooling at all. When we look at poverty, a staggering 36% of households rely on some form of social grant just to get by. Disability prevalence is sitting at 8.3%, mostly folks with walking or seeing difficulties. And then there's the health burden. The city struggles heavily with high HIV/AIDS and TB rates, with maternal HIV prevalence stabilizing at what the source specifically calls an alarmingly high rate of approximately 40%. These are some incredibly tough social realities.
And all of that brings us to our final act, Section 4, the boss fight, the triple challenge.
When you consolidate all of these shifting demographics and vulnerabilities, you hit the ultimate hurdle, the triple challenge of inequality, unemployment, and poverty. These three forces are just deeply intertwined, and the source material really does not mince words here. I want to highlight this exact quote from the report. Without radical transformation in how the city manages its rapid urbanization and its massive youth potential, it may struggle to realize its vision of being a caring and livable city. Business as usual is completely off the table. Without a radical shift in strategy, the whole system risks buckling under the weight of these compounded challenges. Which really leaves us with this massive, lingering question. With nearly 5 million people projected by 2050, and 60% of them currently under the age of 35, the potential for a massive economic boom is right there for the taking. So, will eThekwini harness its youth to finally unlock that demographic dividend, or is it going to buckle under the crushing weight of the triple challenge? The numbers are all on the board, but the city's ultimate fate? Well, that's yet to be written. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the data.